happiness. I'm just going to show you how that works. You probably don't know the term state of being, but we all have heard the term state of mind. And so that's one thing we understand what state of mind is. It's sort of the mood we are in, the condition of our minds, whatever it happens to be at the time. We can describe it in a number of different ways. We've heard that term. But a state of being is more than that. Okay? So as part of being human, there are three real major components of it. It goes back historically, thousands of years to culture way before ours, and that is the mind and the body and the spirit. And those overall three things make up our state of being. So it's an overall condition of all of those three components. But so we talked about happiness. This is a very busy screen. I did it deliberately. Okay, I wasn't trying to give you information. You don't have to read it. You don't have to record it or anything like that. But the purpose of it is just to show you that when we talk about happiness, we say, do you want to be happy? We had a show of hands. A lot of people said yes, they're happy already. Would they like to be happier? Yes, they would. So we all know what happiness is. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so even though we know what it is, could you tell me what it is? That's the problem we have. Okay,
Yep.
so everybody has their own notion of what happiness is, and it's not just within us, it's within people who are professionals in the business, psychologists, everything. They all sort of have a slightly different opinion of it. Philosophers have been debating about it for years, like not years, thousands of years going back. So the very first one that I'm showing up there is a Webster definition. It says a state of well-being, contentment, or joy. There's a very interesting email that I read recently from Adam Hergenrother. And Adam Hergenrother is like one of the most successful realtors in the country, period. Forget about Keller Williams. When he has his little bio down the bottom, he says his businesses do over $1 billion a year in revenue. Yikes. Okay, and he's putting a seminar on about topics like this, happiness, what is happiness, joy he calls it. So you see joy mentioned in there in the Webster definition of it. So quite clearly, if we're going to be successful in this business, we have to be successful in our lives, and being happy in our lives is one of the key components of that. So the next one down says there are many definitions of happiness, and this is what we hear all the time. This comes from Psychology Today, was a little article I read. It says at the end of the day, you have to find yours. So now how useful is that? We have to define our own happiness. We have to define what happiness is if we're going to create a roadmap of increasing it in our lives. And so Huffington Post did a little article below that, and they had 100 responses, and I've just grabbed a couple of them and I'll read them out to you, just so you can see that everybody's thinking totally in different terms about what happiness is. And some people just say, this is something that creates happiness in my life, not necessarily what happiness is. Andrew S. says, singing to my dogs every morning, watching the sun creep out of the water as it rises into a new day, celebrating just because. Jamie H. says, watching a kid with the giggles and then getting them to get into yourselves. These are all things we can relate to too. This next one's a little bit different. Bryant J. says happiness to him is a warm gun, bang, bang, shoot, shoot. I don't know much about Bryant, but a different perspective on it. And there's a couple others. So happiness is just something that's very, like it's all over the board. How do we take all that information and compose it into something we can use? This is what I found on the internet. Here's another perspective of it. I just found this. I found it. A sign somebody posted there. It says, to the thief who took my antidepressants, I hope you're happy. So there's another way of obtaining happiness in our lives. But let's start about it. We talked about our state of being. I said that's an important part. If we want to understand happiness, we have to understand our state of being. And our state of being is controlled by our minds. So our minds create a snapshot onto all of those three categories we have, mind, body, and spirit. So if we want to understand where we are with respect to mind, body, and spirit, looking at our minds is a good way to do it. And our minds have two aspects, two dimensions. There's the conscious mind, that's where we make all our decisions, we analyze things, we create things, and implement things, we set targets and goals. It happens in our conscious mind. Our unconscious mind really is running our whole lives in the background. We're not really that much aware of it, but it's creating emotions, it's creating reactions to things that are happening in our lives. It's a trainable thing. Like you can train it to do things that you could do in your conscious mind. Like for example, if you're trying to ride a bicycle, that's something you've trained your unconscious mind to do. Your conscious mind can't do that. So those are the two dimensions of the state of being. And let's start out with our unconscious mind and say, what is the overall state and condition of our unconscious mind? Well, it exists as a mood between two extremes. On the one side, we have pain. The other side, we have pleasure. Those are the two categories that we need, that any organism needs, really, to survive in the world. So pleasure is the reward that we get when we're attracted to things that enhance our lives. Pain is the result the punishment that we get if we do something that either causes us to become injured or put our lives at risk. And so pain dominates pleasure. So we won't do something to create pleasure in our life if it's going to create pain. Pain will scare us away. So we have to indicate that pain is dominating that category. But somewhere along that line, we have a point where we're experiencing neither pain nor pleasure. It's a balance point. Okay, so we put it closer to pleasure because we say we have to be able to say that pain is bigger at some point in time than pleasure. So that's our conscious mind. That's one of the dimensions. But the other dimension is the conscious mind. And that exists, and it's a little bit more difficult and not something that we're very familiar with and conscious of. But the moods that we have within our conscious mind exist between an extreme of fulfillment and victimization, powerlessness, hopelessness on the bottom. So fulfillment is the gratification, the satisfaction, the pride that we take in things that we've accomplished, results that we've created in our lives, utilizing our skills and talents. Victimization, on the other hand, is results that are happening to our lives that we have no control over. We don't think we can do anything about it. It's just happening to us no matter what we do. So those are the two extremes, and somewhere in the middle again, there's a balance point. And if we take those two things and combine them, we get a nice spectral graph. Okay, so if you're an engineer or mathematician, you like this kind of stuff, okay, because you can see it, it's in the graph, and you can say, here's a depiction of our overall state of being. You can see the conscious mind is the vertical graph from fulfillment to victimization, and then the unconscious mind from pain to pleasure. So what does it mean? So if we're experiencing some component of fulfillment, for example, and pleasure, then we would be up in this quadrant. So let's take a look at the quadrants in this state of being. If you're down in this quadrant here, where you're experiencing a lot of pain and you have no control over it, then that's analogous to being in depression. And trust me, I'm not trying to say that that is the definition of depression by any means, but it's sort of the name that we would associate with that state of being in that quadrant. On this side, we'd say if we're experiencing a lot of pleasure in our life and we have no control over it, we're addicted to something. Okay, so that would be, typically we'd say that's addiction. Now addiction is, again, that's not a definition of addiction, because you can be in all kinds of different quadrants and be addicted to something. And again, we're talking about the overall state of our being, so there are components within this as well too, and we'll talk about those in a minute. If you're in this section over here where you experience a lot of pain but a lot of fulfillment, that could be like analogous. A typical example might be an entrepreneur who's dedicated their lives to creating a fantastic and wonderful business, but that's done at the expense of their health and their relationships and their connections, spiritual connections, etc. So that we call, let's call it burnout, because that's sort of what that would sound like to an executive. And there is happiness. So that is actually the definition of happiness. The true definition of happiness, it is a state of being where we are experiencing a combination of fulfillment on our conscious minds and pleasure in our unconscious minds. And there's the overall depiction of it. So, as you go through engineering, one of the things they drill into you all the time is if you ever want to control a level of an output of any kind of process, you have to be able to measure it. So there's a question for us, a general question. Can we control where we are within that? Can we measure, let's start with that. Can we measure where we are on that graph? And yes, you can. And this is how you would do it. So you would say that this midpoint is a null point, it's a 0 point for all categories. And if you were experiencing fulfillment, up the maximum you could experience would be plus 10. So you'd say, where am I on that fulfillment graph between 0 and 10? Sounds very subjective, and it is, for sure. But once you've done it, then it becomes repeatable. Uh-oh, somebody.
Yeah. That's more for me than for you.
Yes.
I'll be done in a second. But anyway, yes, it is measurable, okay? So plus 10 on pleasure and fulfillment, minus 10 on victimization, minus 15. And how do you get at that category? So if I just asked you to place yourself on there, you'd have trouble doing it. Say, what's going on in my life that would put me into any one of those categories? How much fulfillment am I getting in my life? How much pleasure? Clearly, if you were able to break it down into smaller categories, you'd find it a lot easier. And so these are the components that make up happiness. So down the left-hand side, you see love, success, healthiness, connection. If you're experiencing any of those in a combination, then you're going to be happy. And they come about because there is a chart exactly like that one, the state of being chart for each of these. Relationships, accomplishments, body, health, and spirit. So the first two make up mind, body, and spirit. So we go back to the three components that we have, mind, body, and spirit. There they are. We chart those and we take a look at it, we add them up in a special kind of way, and then we end up with where we are on that chart and are we happy. And so that is actually a roadmap of where we are and how and where we want to be. So for example, we said we want to, like, let's turn it into a physical thing, say we want to go to Charlotte. Say, okay, well, where are we? So we get out a map and say, okay, here we are at the Keller Williams office on Wildwood Park, and we want to get to Charlotte, and that's up here, and we can take a look at it, not only where we are, but how we're going to get there. But not only that, it's quite obvious when we look at that chart that there are best ways to get there. Like, you don't want to go through Atlanta and then all the way back up and around, or up to Charleston, go all the way up and around. You say, no, I'll take the most direct method. And when I get there, I might have to make some little zigzags, depending on what things are like, but you know how to get there. So if we're going to go by car, for example, we've got the map, we know how we're going to do it, but we also have to know how to drive. So there's a process around driving, right? So, not only do we know we recognize all the signs, we know how to steer the car, we know how to start the car. Steering the car is a totally unconscious process. We're not even aware of it. So if you sit in your car and you watch your hands moving, it'll be going up and down, you're saying, I don't know why it's doing that. I'm not conscious that I'm getting too close to the boundary on the left or the right, but my hand's moving by itself, it's unconscious. It's a process. So we have to have that process of drive if we want to make that, to get up there. And so excellence is the process that we would use in order to move from one state of being to another. And so we hear a lot of coaches in particular say accountability. And I just and I understand accountability means certain things to coaches. It doesn't mean the same thing to us. So when we hear the word accountability, our unconscious brains automatically consider that to be a negative word. We're automatically afraid that somebody's going to try and blame us for something and then punish us for doing it. That's the way we look at it. So when somebody says, let's create some accountability around this, it just creates fear in us and we don't use it. So why, if we wanted to create a positive result, would we use a negative word that's going to hinder us from getting there? So instead we use the word excellence. And excellence is defined as the creation of results that are fulfilling and pleasurable. Well, we just saw that results that are fulfilling and pleasurable are happiness, is happiness. So excellence, in fact, is the creation of happiness in our lives. And so that's the path we would take, that's the process that we would take. And so just really quickly, what can you do with this and what would be next? Can I create or increase happiness in my life? Yes, you definitely can. And yes, this is an easy, simple way to do it. It's a roadmap of how to create it. What is the purpose in my life? Oh my God. Like, how many of us walk around saying, I'm doing okay, but I wonder, something's missing in my life. Okay, especially like younger folks do that. They don't know what they want to do in their life. Something's missing. What is my purpose in life? You can use this technique to create a common purpose and understand what your purpose is. So if happiness is measurable, are the components of happiness also measurable? Yes, they clearly are, and yes, you would use the same technique. You could literally get up in the morning and say to yourself, am I happy? Well, where am I on the state of being? And then say, what do I have to do in order to, what is the one thing that I would want to do today to make that happen?
John, as the wife, I'm able to put the cane
Okay,
and pull you.
thank you.
Okay, because look at our team leaders.
Mom, don't be mean, man. That's fucking
Okay, and
mean.
then what is the process of excellence? And so that's essentially it. So I'm doing this more of almost as an experiment. Say, if anybody has any interest in this, I can create additional trainings around it or seminars if you want. So is that something you guys would be interested in seeing?
Yeah, guys, this was something, this kind of just happened, I think it was, it was after hours, I'm kind of